no bar se bege taraba dan dam jen jen be bar de ju bar se ba tam je je zo se be ma nam ga da nyam be sim jen dam je de wa dan de do ngar dan jar nyor de la na me ba yang da bar zo be zan jo Rinpoche do bar sa. Thus until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and the mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and the mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and the mind. Page 4, Shenjie Zawa Dan Je Para Je Be Para De Lam Mai Dam Bai Nan Lai Jab Zen Je Wo Ye Dam Jin Goro Je La Zo Nan Lai Jab Zen Je Wo San Je Jom Den Den Nan Lai Jab Zen Je Wo Tam Be Je Nan Lai Jab Zen Je Wo Bai Be Ge Den Nan Lai Jab Zen Je Wo Ba won kan zhou ji jiong song me zo yi ye jie jian da den ba nan lai jia zhen jie wo. English. We take refuge in the kind Ru Lam and the lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deity of the mandalas of the Yadam. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sangha. We take refuge in all the noble Ragas, darkness, Dhamma garden, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Page 5. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the example of the Bodhisattva. As the previous Buddhas embodied enlightenment and progress on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, giving birth to bodhicitta, and apply myself to complete stage of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the example of Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embodied enlightenment and progress on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, giving birth to bodhicitta, and apply myself to complete stage of the path. Sanjo Nimbon Jije Bar, Sanje Nan Lai Jab Zen Je, Che Dan Sanjo Zen Ba Ye, So Lai De Ye Jab Zen Je, Che Tarang En Je De Je Je, Sanjo Dong Ne Je Ba Dang, Sanjo Zen Be La Ba La, De Da Ren Yen Ne Ba Da, De Yen Ro La Ben Dong De, Sanjo Zen Ne Je Je Yen, De Yen De Ne La Ba La, Ren Ba Yen De La Ba Re Je. Go to the page 6. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be separate from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Mai Nam Ga Da Nyam Be Sim Jen Dam Je De Wa Da De Ve Ju Dan Den Bar Jur Je Dung Ara Dan Dung Ara Je Ju Dan Ja War Jur Je Dung Ara Me Be De Wa Da Men Ja Wa Jur Je Nye Ren Ja Da Nye Da Char We Da Nyong La Ne Bar Jur Je. Go to page 10A. The The ground is sprinkling with scented water and strewed with flowers. It is adorned with meadow, the spring mountain, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. As Buddha fair, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fairs. Sa ye bi je zo ye me do zhang, re ra len ye nye de jian ban de, san je yen la me ge burwa ye, ro ge nam dai yen de je wa re shu. To the Lama who possesses the three kayas, I offer the altar in our secret offerings with my body, word, and all that is visible. Please grant me the supreme realization and enlightenment. Sanze wadain jojen yabada, jese yerain gorje zorwaye, gewa jonze da geje zaba. Tam je zo be san jo ze mo. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightening of all sentient beings, all these are dedicated. Om Guru Rina Mandala Punzamang Samandra Savarana Samaye Hong. Page 10, B. I call refuge, ornament of the world. Your fame provides the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor, Vajradhara, widow adopt. I bow at feet of Father Jektin Sungo. Continually attain of no one but you. Compassionate one, grant your blessing. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I can realize the unlimited nature of mine. Cham den je do min zam len je, chak pe tong som yong la cha, tsu me jar wa dor jen chang, pan je den gong be ya lan de, te ta de sam je ju le mi, sen je lo je do je je, nyen ge men bai sa ne jang, sen je da da do bar zin je lo. Please chant the will of the Dharma of the two wheels and their combination, according to the disposition and likewise the mental capacity of sentient beings. Sem je nam je sam ba da, lo ye se da je da var, che jong de mong de ba ye, che jeng ko lo gor de zo.
Gombo to je de ba tam je ba de ba bo. Suna yo de jap ji je de yin ju la sa ta lo da ba da ja de ve je ke ve ke sa le ro. Tik da song sam cho je ba ji je chu la sa da lo to ne ro la ya do la ba da la da de. Shen kan sam ba yo de je ke de la ya sa da ro to je je de la da ba ba me la je de lam. 파보 주바 자완도 바가 줄라만 와서 네 오늘 기계 잡아라 저 산지 그냥 오니 알아서 저가고 또 대바 잡으려면 잡아서 와서 나가 잖아 휴진치 야조배 먹지 말 질러서 섬진도 다녀다 다지나 다바 휴진은 더더더 아니 저러나 바깥다 다고니 사졌지 못을 그래서 얘네 다들 레나 당고 조롱 저당자서 대사자 정보다 못을 제철 제철에다 레 당보 밖에 사졌지 못해 양설 인을 밖에 레하고 요 말이지 레 당보 안에 이 강이나 솔직히 사자치 모시고 올래라고 라고 sem레시 나가서 사진 랍성 레들이 답에 가고 다시 쪼를 쳐다가 가리에서 사바상게 된다고 양의 요래 제 강리들은 사자치고 레사월이 시바데 사자치고 쳐뭐 답을 쳐대 그래서 뭐 쪼록 쳐다 가리를 잡아야 돼. 쳐서 상주를 밥으로 쳐서나 그리 뒤쳐서 배 쪽밥들이 내라고 저 담아 감도 통통이요 말이 상주는데 참아들이 똑바로 통고요. 이런 것들이 쳐서 담아서 쪽발이 가까이 치는들이 제용을 쳐지 뭐 때렸다게 당을 대회들이 담아서 쪽발이 가까이 치고나들이 바닥에서 가보요. 제 사자편에서 딱에 수말에 용띠 좋은 수장 살지. 중대는 어디니 가까 몇시나 시트거래지. 리바지 개발이 중대 용띠는 지리오를 다들 가까이 해들었지. 사자 저번에 선 땅송이가 가까이 해요래. 땅송이가 가까이 해들이 당관에 최용호랑 이제 뭐 찍발이 최기반 잡으는 찍래서 무슨 통역을 쳐다 싸주는 거 쳐대 촉황하는 거 찍발이 그래서 내가 끼지죠 저랑은 뭐라 사제선지 니 매있어 니가 말해 오 때문에 가디언에 대해서 거야래 무슨 심지 탐지 선도 사제했지 얘랑 다다 심지 사제니 차와지 대다고 하게 내가 끼지죠 거 다사지 이些요래 사지는 저대 삼제선 로로 살아요 니뭐 받는 지这강사증呢 平时上这一个个培训要啥嘞？大体学生个差不多就真正就重要的，那个经济就嘛的，人啥的没这些喂，这样过出去的哦，人啥的没这些的，一套的这里身体基础况呢，他把他没，那个经济啥的有的，我当他的都跟。大金你只有我这啥的有的都个有的没有没的重要的原来是几刚就的几的소주 샘을 하래 그래 소주 샘에다가 소주 때는 뭐 뭐라 하죠 그 저거는 잡아 먹었다 저거 통만 톡바르고 차려요 대베대로 쪼그런 거 쳐지나더니 잡아치고 잡아들여서 밥쳐고 사도 삼초 커져요 초콜릿은 오라더니 가도 나고 사지 가도 그랬잖아 저 람진 통속이 말이 내가 뽑았는데 데려오래서
So, Madam, friends, come back to our book, the Mahamudra book on page 28. And yesterday we spoke already a little bit about the nature of Mahamudra, what it actually is. And so now today, on page 28, it begins with the experience that we go through during the practice. So it says in the beginning, the mind is like a river rushing down a gorge. And so in the beginning, when we first practice Mahamudra, it is not very easy. So actually, now that being said, on the one hand, we do actually say that it is easy because it is nothing but your own mind. We have said that your own mind is the Buddha. So from that perspective, we can say it is very easy, but then it is very difficult to see still. So in the beginning, it is like this river rushing down a gorge very fast. That is how our mind is in the beginning. And so now when we say Mahamudra is very easy, or the mind is very easy to understand, that is when we speak of it in terms of, for example, the essence of water. All the water in the world has the same nature. And then this river rushing down a gorge is, for example, that same water then becomes like toilet water, so it becomes dirty. And then once it is that dirty, it is not so easy to clean it anymore. And then this dirty water sees everything as dirty. So we need to then be able to separate the dirt from the clean water, the dirty from the clean. But then when we look at the essence of that, it is still water by nature. It is just separating the dirt from the water is difficult. Also, as Sakya Pandita had said, anyone can understand the difference between good qualities and faults. We can see the difference, but it's difficult to actually separate it. So now when we practice Mahamudra, we gradually separating from that dirt. And the essence is still the same, like the essence of water in the world. That we can see, that we can drink, and also toilet water. It all has the same essence. It is just that due to a temporary condition, the water has changed. But then the essence is the same. For example, we have said that Buddhas and sentient beings are actually not separate. And now when we think about it, it is really true. And we always speak about that. Our own mind really is the Buddha, but there is a temporary duality due to a temporary condition that has arisen. For example, we speak about gods and demons. And in the context of water, the gods would be the pure mind or the mind of love. And then the demon would be the mind, the afflicted mind. For example, anyone can be a god and a demon at a different time. For example, there is two friends who love each other. In that moment where there is love, they are a god. But the next moment, when anger and jealousy arise, they turn into demon. The same person turns into a demon. So it is we change temporarily due to a condition that arises. But it is said that ultimately, gods and demons do not really exist. So on the basis, they don't exist. Because the basis is the same. It is Buddha nature. And there is nothing pure or impure. It is just a temporary arising due to the dualistic grasping of self and other. That there seems to be this appearance of gods and demons and spirits and obstacle makers and harm doers and so on. And the condition that arises comes from one's own mind. So then you have to look at your own mind. And when you look at your own mind and like a certain condition of an affliction arises, it is just like first you have this pure mind, which is like water, and then you're adding champa flour to it, for example. And then it becomes very thick, and then eventually you can't even see the water anymore. It becomes like a thick soup, you can't see the water. And so that is like similar to the mind that is like a river rushing down a gorge, like really quickly rushing down the mountain. And then as the river rushes down the mountain quickly, it takes with it all the earth and the rocks. And then as it takes all the earth and the rocks, the water becomes dirty. So it changes in color temporarily. And so temporarily we cannot see the actual pure nature of the water, but still what is rushing down is the same. It is still the essence of water. So that's the experience in the beginning.
가도대 저송이야 최랑지에 고자를 사도도 코르고 코르데 최랑지 셰그랑지데 요래 대외 셈리 빌레다 셈 다운 감미들이 강에 치르러 나도 막던 저거 요래 이배 강을 따다가 오 승원형이 저를 배 유모가 나도 막던 저도 로마탄 때에 송그래 대분이 배는 엄마 통하래 다 통해. 이 통지들이 세문이들 가려야 돼. 신khí 시바세 되고 그래. 나도 대화인데 동네에 고자리 니지 신이 납시대. 나바 시바 싸워 그래. 딱 돌아 롱밥처럼 동네에서 초코 요리, 다다 동네 탐지 초코 요리들이 중에 지제매가 연구 요리 좋아. 제 동아리 동네지 세일지나 지나 강일지나 남생군지 요리 동네에 전체 연구 요리. 그래서 제외는 들이 동네 차와지다 다 통속을 몇 배는 강화되는 이만 샤로나. 근데 강화 더치 중중 강대요리 대통 요리. 세일지도 회직장매 내가 동네 매와도 이제나 남생군 남도 자자 차와지 하고 님은 서로를 지질 드시는 강제에 성을 대가지고 통화 용띠리 당 세군이 된 통구요래 통화에 딱 보면 요요요 이 유지 총총 나도 차와게 살나 딱 보면 요 그랬더니 sen nakatawe 시바들 남도 고시와 파야 남도 찍찍님 팀에가 되네 무슨 짓도 로이도 그래서 내 바라 싸움하고도 마음 바라 싸움하고도 나도 가르쳐 놓고 책책다봐 나도 파 괜히 파 요가 나쁘면 좀 뭐고 안 맞아 가득 잡아서 나도 속바르게 까고 안 맞아 나도 상보들 때 상보를 맞아 깨져 맞아 나도 파도 나쁘 싸니 맞아 야잖아 이 시바는 저랑 속터고 말이지 시바랑 속터구나 파야잖아 나도 내 마음에 들었지. 그래서 싸움보다 인투 싸움보다 들이 배는 사당 천년 죄와 착발을 강에서 오고 진념용도 타고 진념용도 타면 배는 설등에 잡히고도 이거나 다다 진짜로 세리들이 양배 사상못을 항상 지키잖아. 그게 영벌이 사상부 누구 이렇게 항상 뭐버리 가이스 그치 저러도 섭도 나도 저러도 냐명대 때네 근데 직장마치 장니 직장마치 시바쿠라서 되나 들 때보다 그래 사보는 뭐 장니 땅송 야라 냐명대 양장에서 코로나더니 나도 강하면지 가장 기반은 진짜 능이 진짜 편하고 얼마나 내기 좀 좋고요. 대화도 가면 걸 내기지 보잖네. 들게는 이제 배송을 하고 됐지는 얘기하나. 들까래 들은 나도 마디는 너 봐도 진도 그도 뒤잡용도 탔나. 들이 바드 초강가 다 이바. 대화도 때문에 삼점이 자자 계속 강에 총선하고 요래. 이 초강가 나지 제가 좀 마찬가지게 많이 봐. 저는 딱히 땅콩 요바서 차요 요래. 진념용대 토고래지.
So the example is that of water. And even if the water becomes like a river rushing down a gorge and changes in color, the essence of water actually never changes. That's never lost. Only temporarily, due to a condition, it changes in color. But the essence, the crystal water essence, still is the nature of that water. And now when we engage in practice and we look at our mind, in the beginning, it is as though the difficulties are actually increasing. There is even more thoughts than before. It seems to be more difficult than before when we look at our mind. Often disciples actually say that when they practice and when they look at their mind, the nature of their mind, it seems as though negative emotions and thoughts are even more than before. And that's actually a good experience, because before they have meditated, they just have not seen their mind, and now they're beginning to see their mind. So that is actually a good sign, because what you're seeing for the first time is your own clear awareness. There is a clear consciousness that is fully aware of what arises in your mind. You know that now you're happy or you're sad, or this person is a friend, this person is an enemy, and all of that, all kinds of thoughts arise in your mind. There is this clear consciousness. And in the beginning, it is like a river rushing down a gorge. So you feel everything. You feel especially a lot of difficult feelings of suffering. It arises all the time. But you recognize this is painful, this is suffering. So you're fully conscious of that for the first time. So it arises, first of all, due to an outer situation. You have a problem. And then the experience that you gain here in the beginning is that it is because of this outer situation that I am beginning to grasp with my inner mind. So I'm thinking about this problem, and that is why I suffer. And so that is the experience. But then actually, there is also subtle suffering and thoughts that are always there that we mostly actually cannot see. For example, it is like when suddenly the sun is shining in that room, we can see in each sun ray there's limitless dust particles that we didn't see before. So sometimes it seems on the outer level that everything is going fine, there is no suffering, no problem. But then on the inner level in the mind, there is a lot of constant subtle thoughts arising, just like dust particles in a sun ray. And so that seeing all of that for the first time is actually a very good quality. You're really beginning to see your own mind. But it is just that what you see in those thoughts, you should not hold on to them. So whatever thought arises, let it be. And the mind that remains is just like space. And the thoughts, they come and they go. So now you're seeing what you have not seen before. And so as you sit meditating, don't hold on to anything. Don't entertain any thoughts of the past, and don't anticipate the future. Just directly look at your mind and cut through any thought that arises directly. And so cutting through here does not mean that you are rejecting the thoughts that arise. You are just not following those thoughts. So it is not necessary, you shouldn't think actually that I don't want that thought. Don't reject the thought. In meditation, we should be free from rejection and acceptance. So don't think that thought is bad, I must get rid of it. And also don't think that's a good thought and so on. Don't think about anything at all. Just don't follow the thought, just let it be. And gradually your awareness will attain stability. And then you gain the experience that actually even though thoughts arise, if I just don't follow them, if I just let them be, they're actually not hurting me, they're not doing anything. Only if I begin to think about it and I follow these thoughts, then it is like the water is carrying all the dirt and so on, and it changes in color, and then there is suffering. So that's the experience to be gained here in the beginning. And so then, when an outer condition arises, for example, you can see how your mind changes moment by moment when something happens. For example, something terrible happens, a big problem that disturbs you very much. And then you feel very upset. But then the mind instantly changes, and maybe the next moment you remember something really funny from the past and you begin to laugh. But then you remember your problem again and you cry. So the mind changes very quickly from moment to moment. And these thoughts that make the mind change are like this earth and these rocks that change the color of the mind temporarily. So no matter what arises, don't grasp at anything at all, and just sustain awareness. And then eventually awareness will attain stability and then always remain. So that is the experience to be gained. Don't grasp at positive or negative thoughts at all, whatever it is. And also, yesterday we already mentioned logically, actually there is no benefit in grasping at all of these thoughts, because everything happens according to karma. Whatever we experience, happiness and suffering, is already determined by the karma we have created in the past. So with that knowledge, we can actually also close the door to thinking, knowing that there is just no benefit in thinking about it. And so then, as you continue to practice, gradually you deepen this experience that that when I do not hold on to the thought, then it doesn't affect me negatively. And if I do hold on to the thought, then it does affect me negatively. And so gradually, then you become like a practitioner where it says in the middle, it flows slowly like the river Ganges. So then gradually the mind becomes more calm and nothing doesn't affect you so much anymore, no happiness and suffering. So your difficulty becomes lesser. The mind flows more gently like the river Ganges, not so quick like a river falling down a mountain gorge. And so this is how we gradually gain an experience as we continue to observe the nature of our mind.
가시에는 답이 강내치 본도 좋아지리 제한이 되나 당부를 찾아주거냐 소리 말아 그도 상처스 사바체비 봐 이게 사바체비 봐 이제 맞춰를 강에 침보요래 대도 다인데 체인데 저 차대요래 저는 야미지 저게 저요 말이 저희 진왕지 나도는 대체를 내절롱지 다서는 뭐 진왕지 별나 다지 이오리 저도 다 저희 좀 비치 차대요래 대회 나도 저 저요 말까 저요 말 대회는 때를 sabjike 저들 사바체미 바로양한테 양 대들甚至저 파마마지가 직접 매와 대하고는 들이 제를甚至제는 봐 속치 못해 설도 거도 되는데 쪼라는 거요. 저들한테 레좀비 십에 망고랑이 송치바들 이 송자와 시장의 소르바도 주바고 말아봐 딱 감속서가 수도인 적고요 말이죠. 말아봐 직사 직자요 말이 사람이 말씀은 적고요 말이 동안갈 거라마 토스는데 그 준비를 지켜요. 그 세상 변정상 제도 아 소르바도 주바고 송자와 시장 소르바도 주바고 딱고 동일 강에 가를 때한테 세상 말랑 그 세상 변정상 제들이 주바고 배제자들이 준비를 잡고 유모를 정상지에 뭐 유모를 정상지나 그렇지 소진이라는 것들이 사바체비 방안들이 물리 사바들이 제무가 유모가 ramjin 것들이 이렇게 바닥 총맞지 왔지 되나 대참들 유법의 요래 별라 조바요래 저천요래 야 세나요 말에 파시 조랑이 그 차그 사바를 용띠들이 사자집에 똑같게 이렇게 톡보고요래 되면은 사바 축자고래 사바 축자는 그런데 조가가 나지 차트고요 말 패적체모 이런 약들이 들어가니 약대에서 남의 약을 기자 체제들이 데렸다 요거를 이제 고 컨트롤해서 수발에 서대되는 양다 추가서 남들 아주 추다 말이 저독게 뭐 공업에 기자 체제 주가 창다동데 그 기능이 받은 체나 들용과 당무들이 이용기를 허용을 다다 이용기를 허라 다다냐와나 또요 마음 빨아들이 세상에 나라가 세상에 왔대 하고네 세상에 종종도 앞으로도 왔지네 들이다 세상랑 뭘까 들이 랑이 세상에 좀랑 이인들이 잡기 파마마저 제조 사바라들이 제기들이 대다고들이 진료가 가르치나들이 대서 제물 하고나 제 고아라고 차 지들이 딱 공부해 공자지 뭐가 제가 랍상 매발동 소요래 랍상 58산데 오 매출 세당하나 오 매제를 그걸 놓았다 왔을래 저 소속 세당도 하고 말이지 하고는 랍상 세당 그런 것들 나왔을 그거든 그것들이 세면 니가 말이야 니 매매가래 세상께도 시바시랍디 좀 매와샤 세상과 관계돼 시랍도 세상으로 말해 별라 들이 데려 상하가 사자집에 따라가기 싫어 니몽거람지 세상에 니몽거람지 이시에서 니몽도 말고 니몽가들람지 이시에서 니몽가들이 얘도 세면 샤르마들이 뒤가거든요 랑 시바대라 소송되나 시바데 매라고 같으니 누가 나지라기 그 처음에 봐 땅으로 땅 타고요 해 들이 제일들이 다 조가 같아지 들부터 줄랑 쇼로 셔들 봐요 들을 건딱 참바람 인사보들이 내 차인 거요 다 공문에 조가가 나지 소시대 땅아 어레 우스바스에서 또 강에 조가가 나지 해서 하고 특별히 했지.
So sometimes people come to ask a question, and they say they have a lot of problems. They come with a lot of problems, and even though they are actually practitioners, and so then that is because even though we practice, we meditate, we practice Mahamudra, if we have not established a foundation of the relative bodhicitta, of immeasurable love, then we will always run into these kind of difficulties, these problems. And that is because if we have not developed this boundless love, we will always consider ourselves as most important. We are selfish. And therefore, this life, our own life, is most important. And practice is not most important to us, even if we do some practice. So we are controlled by our own afflictions because we consider ourselves as most important. And in that way, controlled by our afflicted mind, we lack control as we are taken by the winds of karma. So for as long as there is this dualistic perception of self and other, naturally we consider ourselves as most important. And for as long as we do that, it will be very difficult to change our negative thoughts, our negative emotions, and to bring an end to them. And that is the reason why in the beginning it is important to train the mind first in love, in immeasurable love, over and over again, recognizing all sentient beings as one's parents. And then also understanding that when afflictive emotions arise, who actually hurts the most from that? Actually, it is yourself, the one who is afflicted. And the reason why we hurt ourselves the most is because of karma. In the future, that affliction will ripen. And we take birth in the lower realms, in hells and so on. That is why Milarepa had said the root of the lower realms is anger. Therefore, practice patience, even at the cost of your life. So Milarepa actually was not afraid of anything. He was not afraid of anything in the three realms of samsara. But the only thing that and also he had complete control over the 5 elements already, and all the spirits and the demons and so on. So he was not afraid of anything except for karma, and especially anger, which is most destructive. And that is why he said, even at the cost of your life, practice patience, because hatred will make you fall into hell, into the lower realms. So with that fear, and recognizing the anger as one's own real enemy, we need to turn away from it. We need to let it go. So it comes from first understanding karma. First, we are afraid of our own afflictive emotions. So that actually is really the first step. We are afraid of our own afflictions because we know that we will fall into the lower realms. And then we cultivate immeasurable love. And we recognize that actually when there is love, then naturally there is no one that you could get angry at. There is no one that could disturb your mind so much. And that is because you love your husband and wife, your children and so on. So because you love them, naturally you will be patient with them. And naturally you will be moral and you will not be greedy and so on. Naturally you practice the 6 paramitas. So that is the quality of love. And therefore it is this immeasurable love that we first must make an effort in the beginning. And if we do not make an effort in developing love, then our mind will not become like this river Ganges that flows gently. Then there will always be ups and downs in our practice. Even if we practice, and sometimes it seems that our meditation is going really well, but then the moment we encounter some negative circumstance in the world, then often things get even worse than before, and we never really actually develop any practice. Also, Chamgyun Kongtrul has said that when things are well and everything is going fine, then it might appear that we give a resemblance of a real Dhamma practitioner. Like we are basking in the sun and we are giving the resemblance of a real practitioner. But the moment we encounter an adverse circumstance, the hidden afflictions suddenly become exposed. So our real faults suddenly come to the surface, and then we are completely controlled by it, and we become just ordinary. So then we actually have never really developed our practice, even if it appears that we are a Dhamma practitioner. And so if we do not let go of our anger right now, if we continue to be controlled by it, even if we cannot see the hell realm right now, in the future, that will certainly become the cause for us to fall into hell. So it is important to reflect on the faults of anger, and really knowing its fault, you should find that there is really no one that deserves your anger. It is not proper to get angry at anyone. And then also all beings have been my parents, and therefore they are not objects of my anger, but I should have love for them. And so then if you have love as a basis, then even if a negative circumstance arises, you get very angry or an affliction arises, because you have love as the basis, you instantly know that, it is not proper to get angry at that person. Nobody deserves my anger. And then you will be able to continue to sustain stability of awareness. And also later, when you come to your meditation practice, you will instantly be able to let go of this affliction, and awareness will grow stronger. On the other hand, now, if a person offends you, and then you get angry at them, then if you think that, this person is hurting me, then actually you are responding with anger. So you should actually think that even though the person is hurting me, that is my karma, and by all means I must not get angry at that person. So you, instead of looking at the person, you look at your own anger and sustain a clear awareness, a clear focus of awareness. And so within the mind, you cannot have two states of mind at the same time. There's only one mind. So that means if in the moment when you're angry, you do not have wisdom awareness at all. You're completely controlled by the anger. The moment you are fully aware, then you cannot be angry, because these two states cannot coexist. And in fact, according to the Vajrayana view of Mahamudra now, it is actually said that the afflictive emotion itself, by nature, is wisdom. So the nature of the 5 afflictions is actually wisdom. And that is when you sustain awareness, then each of these 5 afflictions that arises within that clear awareness. And when clear awareness is sustained with stability, the awareness is like fire that burns the afflictions and makes them fire too. And then whatever of the 5 afflictions arises, then instantly dissolves, and there is not even a feeling left behind. It completely dissolves into equanimity. And so then the mind becomes like this gentle river Ganges, and a sign of that is such a person is that their behavior is very peaceful and subdued. They're mindful, very careful in their actions. They are naturally just good people. They get along with anyone and so on. So that is a sign of someone having reached that level of being very calm. And also you can see it for yourself when you look at your own mind and you find that I'm able to practice some patience and be more subdued, then your mind has become like this gentle river Ganges.
근데 강자를 봤으면 로요리 소상가스 거리 탑재 거리 랍 따와들이라 속속성들이 사자주고 주복해 가럽 travatele 들이 종속거리 들 가럽 travatele 장나 들 가게지 가다지 다디선 요뭐 속치봉을 되게 왔다 그래 그냥 가를 마가를 그요 말이 들 가고요리 가디 가이가 가고 그랬더니 별로 또 소탈했더니 이발을 잘 별로 유모바들 양탕양탕 유모바들 쪽에다 서로 당고 그래 또 그때 해당다 차도 이제 상속도 상속 샘플락이라 그래서 해당다 차도 이제 다단 잠벌링기 자캅당연 자캅 초과자들 자캅당시 가리실 자크도 라기 자캅랑글라 자캅 이거랑 것들이 강바를 야서 어떻다 가르치게도 마음의 집에 이제 가르쳐 자캅 가시들을 랑 자캅랑글라 그거래 매망 대상제 등에를 쌓아놓다 오뒤 밑이 저거 노소를 낳고 요래 고치 상지가 노선 거절이 말에 짜리 갈리 시당 저 시당 되게 시당에 가도 시당 소설 율라다 요래 제 콘서트로 가오 요래 가오 요 말이 가오는 뭐가나요 좀 충분히게 남행인 저 냐와는 용찬 좀 충분히게 다 때로 라마 매빠지 요래 레롱 지선로 어디 그래서 지와리는 대답을 지와리지 동네에서 용구요래 되게 자꾸 꼴었다는 동네에서 가차워서 싸웠다는 티카와도 티시랑도 시랑 가와도 시랑 소소로도 리사도 사지 뭐 하고들이 시당 기막차대 시당 코는 지금 계속 와 자고 그래 시당 코는 들빼라 말 아니 빼시다 쳐버려 보고 좀 그래야 해 데리더니 시당 따다다 그래서 고초를 오요래 내가 그래서 그 초탈 따버려 시당은 정상기 레이저 정상기 더블을 못 베렸다 그 상세고 배용을 뛰니 이 사바등이지 재미가 되게 야 그래서 아주 쳤다 가리 도도 되는 그래서 주바가 차라 그래들이 당연히 조각가나지 랑랑을 따네 우리 이는 그래서야 말때 맞을 바데 이 상속처럼 사바세 지게 속다 저리 속다 상호당 거는 사실 저거 그양 람주고 말이 내가 강사 체파리요래 그래서 사자지 부속지도 다 따와서 은혜라 속속성었더니 남도 지마 타더니 시바서 쩔기 무시네 라기 메가 들이 시간하지 시랑하고 배에서 같이 보게 잡아차 뭐요래 그래서 내가 기스니 요거를 이래요 그래서 뭔가지 이 시간이 용띵가는 결용요래 용띵가도 첫째는 사제겠고 송톡 요새 차례지 그 사제가 차례되는 중요요래 대시배들이 데려가왔다 도반도 봤지 동네 제가 정확히는 나 가족 제고를 내다 보봐 하작게 정보를 나는 소주만 들리라고 하요 말에 사자도 보고는 달란 제일 거래 따와서 하고서 야 뭐봐 가면 거기서 설사고 시바사고 이제 석조랑다 세네 이 초강간하게 은혜랑으로 맞춰봐도 이 쪼리선에 제거는데 로마고 그래 동태 같이 모여리죠 근데 책용용이나
So in the beginning, the mind is like a river rushing down a gorge. And until it becomes calm like the river Ganges, we need to make an effort in practice. And that is, we need to practice the 3 levels of the path of individual liberation, bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana. So ideally, if we can, we practice the ultimate view. That is, if you're able to sustain awareness with stability, then you overcome all afflictions only through Mahamudra. And Mahamudra is free from rejecting and accepting anything that arises. So ideally, you just sustain that state of Mahamudra. But then, since we are beginning practitioners, then again, when very powerful afflictions arise and self-grasping arises, and if we would not reject that, if we would not try to block that affliction from arising, it would cause a lot of harm. So actually, we have to, in the beginning now, as beginning practitioner, we have to, in a way, reject. We have to get rid of this afflictive emotion. It is not okay to just let it be remain in our mind, because it will cause a lot of destruction. So we have to practice the path in a graduated way. For as long as these thoughts still are present in our mind, and there is a dualistic grasping. So we must first begin with the individual liberation. And here we must first really understand the danger of the afflictive emotions and what they lead to. We have to really think about this again and again. And especially the worst of the afflictions are anger and jealousy, because they really destroy our love, and especially from the Bodhisattva's perspective. For example, in this world, a lot of countries go to war, there's a lot of conflict. Now, why does that happen? Why are people doing that? So outwardly seen, it may seem that people just want to gain victory and want to defeat others. And no, they want to, even within one country, there's a lot of conflict between people, like losing their houses and so on. So we think about all of that, the problems that people have between countries and within countries. And then we tend to think that, well, the cause of that, the fault here is the person. There are certain people who cause a lot of trouble. So we think, for example, it's the president's fault, or it's somebody else's fault, some person's fault. But actually we shouldn't think like that, because the real root of the problem is the afflictive emotion, the anger. And then where is that anger? And then you find, actually, I also have that anger in my own mind. So do those people like to go to war, for example? Do they like to fight? Certainly not. But they are bound to it because they are karmically born in such a place. And once they're born there, then there is their result, which is similar to the cause. So in the beginning, they already went to experience hell. That is the result of full maturation. And now they're born in this place where they experience the results similar to the cause. So they have no freedom. They are taken there by the winds of karma. And once they are born there, they are bound to experience that kind of suffering. And then that kind of intense suffering, why does that arise? It arises from anger. Where is the anger? Actually also in my own mind. So understanding karma, when you understand karma, then the moment that negative emotion like anger arises, instantly you will feel afraid, because you know the consequences. For example, I myself, when I was very young, I was actually very hot-tempered. I was quite even famous for that. But now, since I understand the destruction it causes, it has gotten somewhat better. But so in the individual liberation path, first of all, we understand the harm caused by the afflictions based on karma. So we are afraid of our own anger. We know the suffering that it leads to. And all the suffering in the world is caused by that. And then in the Bodhisattva path, then we cultivate immeasurable love and compassion. And then at that point you're able to practice patience in any circumstance. And then at that point your mind has already become like gentle, like the river Ganges. And then when you look at your mind, you can actually see it for yourself where you're at. There is no need to ask anybody else. If you find that you're lacking not really trust in karma or love and compassion, then that is where you have to make an effort in developing an understanding of karma and to cultivate love and compassion and so on. So it is not actually very advisable to go directly just to Mahamudra and just practice Mahamudra. And of course, everyone is different, every person is different, and if you're really able to sustain the stability of awareness all the time, then really you will be able to let go of the thought instantly. The very moment the thought arises, awareness is so sharp that it recognizes it instantly and it is already gone in that very instant. And that also is based on understanding that self and others don't exist. And so then the affliction, for example, the anger instantly dissolves, and when the anger dissolves, then the very next moment you are starting laughing, for example, instantly. So that is when the affliction has become wisdom. So each of the 5 afflictions has a certain quality to it when it dissolves, like laughing with anger and so on. And so when the 5 afflictive emotions dissolve, they turn into 5 good qualities. They become the 5 wisdoms. And the essence of these qualities are the enlightened body, speech, mind, qualities and activities. And from there, that is actually where the enlightened activities of the Buddhas come from. So then when these positive thoughts of patience and so on arise, then you should rejoice and hold on to them. And when the negative thoughts arise, then in the beginning there should be a sense of fear towards them because we need to get rid of them. So it is actually extremely important for us to keep in mind that from our perspective in the beginning it is very important that we must actually practice some rejecting and accepting. We have to let go of the negative emotions. And actually, we should just practice according to the 37 Bodhisattva practices. There's really no higher teaching than that. Any teaching like the Mahamudra teaching should be also applied to that. So the 37 practices also teach on that, on how to sustain the view. And according to these practices, the 37 practices, we should also bring that experience of the view into our day-to-day activities. And so in this way, we have to train the mind for many years, for a long time, with great diligence, until we have reached that point where the mind becomes gentle, like the river Ganges. And so actually all of that, in essence, is also included in the 37 practices. So to keep them kind of as a basis is very important.
이거한테 장한테 십지 상진이 찍봐도 봐도 심지를 찍봐도 봐도 저렇게 있잖아 저기 찍봐도 봐도 잠소리 라발라도 봐송 데리 차파송 뒤쳐서 담으려야 파 송의 잠소리 송 들만 잠소리 송 사지 십지는 송은 셈례송 들면 셈례 다도 저 셈을까지 데리 크게도 아마도 셈지도 와줘서 셈군들이 소소 시과 낚시사와 남바치판디 시와도 하고들이 다 사자 접고 갖다 나가도 차송아 신선 나가치 차송아 들이 나고 그런 느낌 탐지 총고요래 적진기요 어디 그사람 세분하고 조요래 있어 석신기 나와서 세분들이 송거리라고 세분들이 송거리래. 비슷해서 송거리래. 그리고 마치가 되게 생화고구나 생유발을 맞지 매발 맞지 찍다 맞지 생공사고 생쳤다. 사통남 갔다가 차서 되는 진사들이 진짜는 저 같은 출발해서 공업에 성거리 그때 석신 독지고 맞음 도 찍발에 다투고 내가 찍발했더니 다 그런 생분대로 썼다고 봤다고 비장하들이 되라 당시 속설대로 받아서 뭐예금 저거 이렇게 쌀을 차세 옆에 똥을 차세 염를 성파랑 나왔다 동은 니로 말이지 니매가 남과 니매가 전 하고나 이 타마 추추이 마을 세반자서 근데 나와서 그런 게 셀고부터 동안가로 대셔가 근데 라리 소리면서 와대 같은 이책이 따다다는 걸 저도 나와서 그런 거샘 선우기든 하고 그런 거샘 셈이었더니 사또 나왔다고 했잖아 나와서 타주 셈이 동을 타주 송동남지 말라 세상 자송이들 사하왕가 가면에 lama gewe chini na phang ko tu yang da yang na ko te tham chi thi na sa to wang de te sa to wang te o da yin ni ga na ba ni ma to pa ni ji me na de chen na pa ta sha ke yo le de tama chok chi ma ba che ba da de ni yin ko de na wa yo le jang to la yo le 이제 저 빨리 봐 하고 못 보는 지는 심지네 문제는 상기지 들이 찾아봐가 양송 이제 봐서는 따라네 지금 진짜나 진짜 봐 우리 대발에서 저 봐대면 세고 하고 진짜 봐 말이 시사진 동지들이 나이냐 또 이거래 게임을 참 하고 시바데 소소도 싫었대 문제에서 우리 직접적으로 말해서 제 말을 바꿨으나 봐네 문제 직접적으로 말해서 문제에서 가서 한참 제 말에 샘들 드마스 바이브에서 제 말에서
And then it says, in the end, it is like a stream reuniting with its mother, the sea. So we have taken the example of water, and in the end, in this world, all the rivers and all the water will converge with the vast ocean. And so that is just like our mind. The mind of Buddhas and sentient beings has this single basis, just like the ocean water. So first there is the ocean water, and then from the ocean the water evaporates and becomes clouds, and then rain, and then the rain falls back down into the ocean, and so on. So ultimately, all the water arises from the ocean and dissolves back into the ocean. And likewise, Buddhas and sentient beings arise from the mind and dissolve back into the mind. It is said that one should not cut through the root of phenomena, but one should cut through the root of one's mind. That is, look directly at the nature of one's mind, at that consciousness that is here right now, a clear awareness. And when you look directly at your awareness, it becomes just like space. And that is Mahamudra. As we said, mind and space are not separate. And for example, in the Dzogchen, it is said all phenomena of samsara and nirvana are complete within the mind. It is because space, everything is encompassed by space, the entire universe and all beings. Or in the Mahamudra teachings, it says that like all appearances are complete or included within space. They are embraced by space. And also in the middle way school, the Madhyamaka, for example, when you realize the nature of the mind, it is said it transcends existence and non-existence. So in the middle way, it says, do not grasp at the existence and do not grasp at the non-existence. Don't grasp at anything at all. Just look at the mind with clarity directly. without grasping at any thought or anything that arises, and just sustain the clear, empty mind. And so those three kind of approaches of the Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and the middle way ultimately have the same result. So the other scholars here can also explain that in more depth. But the ultimate fruition is the same, or the ultimate nature that they are explaining. And it is the nature of mind that is like space, clear and empty. And also represented, for example, in the form of the deity with consort. And there, for example, we have the yap, the male, that represents the clarity aspect, and the female, the yum, represents the emptiness aspect. And what they represent together is that ultimately there is no duality. And we can understand that when we think of space, we can understand that there is no duality in space. So when the mind becomes like this stream reuniting with its mother, the sea, it is just like, for example, when the sun shines on a crystal, then rainbow lights emerge in 5 different colors. And those rainbow lights are like all the appearances in the universe, everything that appears and exists. Also in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, the verse on the ultimate truth really relates to that point here. It says, appearances are one's own mind. So everything, the outer universe and all beings are really one's own mind. And one's own mind is clear and empty. So we need to resolve that all appearances are the mind, and that the mind itself is empty of self-nature. So that is the teaching on the ultimate truth. Or when we receive an empowerment during the Vajrayana, in the Vajrayana context, we are often introduced to that nature through the crystal ball and the rainbow lights emerging from it. Many of your teachers always introduce you to that. And that actually is a sign of the ultimate empowerment. It is when self and other, this dualistic perception has dissolved into like space, into non-duality. And so now when the mind becomes like this, in the end, like reuniting with the mother, the sea, it is not that one doesn't see or perceive anything any longer. The appearances of samsara and nirvana are still there, but there is no grasping at them. So there is awareness, you know what is there. You see and you hear things, but there's also knowledge of there being a single basis. So there is no grasping at all. There's no grasping at the reality, at the truth of what is perceived. When there is grasping at the reality of what is perceived, then that is what we call a sentient being. And when there is no grasping, one becomes a Buddha. Also, the Sakyabha had said, when there is grasping, you do not have the view. And so that is grasping. What that means here is that it is a belief that something is true. And that does not mean that you don't know what is going on. You know what is going on, you know, but you don't believe it to be true in a certain way. So there is a discriminating wisdom that clearly knows what is happening, that there is eating and drinking, there's self and other and so on, whatever arises, there's virtue and non-virtue. But there is no thought of this is how it is, this is real. There is no grasping at a concrete, separate reality. Nothing is seen to be possessing any true existence on its own. And that is actually what we call the true or valid cognition. Now, this is explained in the teachings of valid cognition, pramana, and ultimately one resolves that the only true valid cognition is one's own, to cognize truly one's own mind. And that is, one's own mind is uncompounded, and experiencing the uncompounded space-like nature of the mind is the only true or valid cognition.
마스라다 파로스바라 들어와대도라서 지금당 랑진다 접사이네서 사자지 뭐 통무져서 나한테 선도들은 소상가수를 남기를 봤음 그래서 대탐제들이 책담나티 대변하고 마나다 제름점나티 돈나티 산초선도 나만이 제마다나 드니디를 다 연구요래 라는 정도 접사이네 좀 타지 봐 좀 타들들이 저번에 스무 공기 숨바리 좀 타지 봐 상주랑 봐 저는 드린 잡으려는 쭉 팽기요래 좀 타지 봐대 다 소소소소 다 사와나와 이렇다 나와나 거리라나 소주 좀 타. 좀 타지 책그 등이 종들이 책을 취지서도 되고 말도 세고 등이 되도록 좀 사서 좀 타르지 일단 잡으려는 줄로도 봤더니 줄로들이 촉받자 그래 다들 좀 타는데 지선이 가래 좀 사지나 달래본 거래 나가 좀 타지네 무슨 재미도 말래네 들이 쭉 가래 얘네야 돼 텔레프리 다지도 걸렸더니 이렇게 내봤던 거요 그렇지 다산다면 저도 받아 추기도 받던 거요 좀 다시 다 좋다 또 다시 다지 니지도 거요래 동당그 대박 니지도 거요래 그것도 대박 다도 당고 다지도 거래 다듯이 봐 제말이 봐서 대시 받은 맛돌았더니 추기라더니 내 봤다 그 추추지 맞지 나 추제 사람이 손도로 좀 코비져서 가보봐 그래서 말이 들때는 동네 사자님이 동대다 그랬더니 니님이 별랑 때는 마성을 타락하버려 했어.
And then it says, proponents of the mantra or paramita vehicles, the Vinaya, and the other scripture collections will not reveal the luminosity of Mahamudra through expounding their texts and philosophical traditions. In brief, what all of that refers to is the various proponents of three levels of the path. That is the individual liberation, bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana path. And what this means is only relying on the words. For example, we say, I'm practicing like the generation stage and so on. And so whatever we practice, if it is not sealed by the twofold bodhicitta, then the self will always arise. And then, regarding these various tenet systems or these philosophical traditions, Chigden Sumgen had actually said regarding these philosophical systems that even holding on to a philosophical system makes one be an ordinary person. And so in general, of course, all of the religions in the world are beneficial. And there's different philosophical traditions or also discussions that arise between Buddhists or non-Buddhists, and even within Buddhism there is also different philosophical tenet systems and so on. And so these tenet systems, the debate that occurs between them is based on words, and through words one attempts to refine each other's or one's own understanding of the Dharma. And so the focus is on through words, but not really in the mind. That is, we are not really actually grasping at our own tradition to be the better one in our mind. We are just debating with words to refine our understanding. And if we don't understand this point, then often it is because of that a lot of harm and fighting in this world is caused in the name of religion. And that is not because of the religion itself, but it is because when we are selfish, a self arises, and then we think that that's my philosophical system and it's better, and we believe our own and only our own to be valid and true. So even if we practice the Dharma or a religion, when the self arises, then it causes a lot of harm, even between religions. And so from the ultimate perspective, it is for this, no, we are free here at this point from all dualistic grasping of self and other. So the ultimate truth clears away the dualistic subject-object grasping. On the relative level, the relative truth first eliminates this strong grasping at a self. And also the clinging attachment to this concrete, like the self-sufficient existence of that self. And if that is not destroyed, if that strong sense of a self is not destroyed, then even Dharma can become very harmful. For example, Gambopa had said, if you do not practice the Dharma according to the Dharma, then that Dharma itself may become the cause for falling into the lower realms. It becomes a cause for wandering in samsara. And so now from this perspective, now of Mahamudra, now from that perspective, for as long as, even if we practice Mahamudra, for as long as we do not actually free ourselves from that grasping at a self, and then ultimately dualistic grasping, liberation will be difficult.
강의 사자 지보시바 이메와 통고를 좋다는 진의 니요래 대마대 직상보 직니바 니요래 대회는 이메와 통고래 통당이 대바들 니요 말에 대회는 냠철이 바보 탐지거들이 사축생들 나빠 사지 버리죠 장지와 강에 당호 다지 지가 로드 고접 사축되나 고접 사축생들이 다 장고요래시 다 상승의 힘이가 통고래 이 도반이나 통고래 들이 동담사적 하고도 그래 되는 통치 파장고래 그래 들이 데려더니 페퍼트타 마크롱데 들이 로마탑들 시동소지 있잖아 들이 데려더니 산지게 된 바양들이 누가 치고 이런 거요래 대변은 용산 쪽에 통보서 받에 무슨들이 랑게 산속선 공고를 했지 때문에 샘놈하고 오늘은 이디시고 그랬대 왜 통무탑송 좀 다삼질라 용탑을 갖고 와야 되고 말이 돼 세상에 그래서 죽고 종네들이 누가요 그래서
And so it is said that the scholars they need to uphold the philosophical traditions, the tenet systems, and like simple-minded people like ourselves should not hold biased views. So the great scholars they have to uphold the tenet systems through debate, but then from our perspective as practitioners now, what are we supposed to do? Now from the perspective of Mahamudra, what we must realize is non-duality. And the moment we begin to think about different philosophical tenet systems, we grasp at them, we have created duality. One is good and the other one is bad. So from the ultimate perspective, we as practitioners must realize non-duality. And they are actually non-dual ultimately. And then so to realize that, we must first cultivate bodhicitta as Buddhist practitioners. And as the term Changchup Semin bodhicitta implies, Chang means to purify. So what we need to purify is the self-cherishing mind first. So the relative bodhicitta purifies the self. And when a self is purified, then you will naturally see that others don't exist. So you will see the empty nature of others. And then you will naturally understand the nature of the ultimate bodhicitta. And so the fault that many disciples then make is that they are taking the tenet systems that are upheld by the great scholars, they're taking them down and use them for manipulations or like some political reasons, and that then without really understanding them, and that actually then really causes a lot of harm to the Buddha's teachings. So for all of us, for those of us who do not have this depth of understanding of the scriptures like the great masters and the scholars have, our main focus should be to cultivate bodhicitta and to realize non-duality. And so regarding those tenet systems, it is said here that the nature of mind cannot be seen only through propagating these tenet systems. And so this is not actually like refuting the necessity of those tenet systems. They are necessary, but now from our perspective, if we cling, if we hold on, or if we grasp at them only, then it becomes an impediment to seeing the nature of mind. Then in a mind without engagement and free of wanting anything, thoughts will arise and subside on their own like ripples on water. So now when we practice Mahamudra, it is said that the mind should not engage in anything. And when the mind just abides without engaging in all those thoughts and emotions that arise, then all of these afflictions turn into wisdom. And then whatever arises naturally arises and subsides on its own. Just like a wave on water, for example, it arises, and the moment it arises, it already subsides back into the ocean. Or here the example is ripples on water. Ripples are very subtle thoughts that arise, not as big as waves, just a subtle movement stirred by the wind that naturally arise. And as they arise, they already subside. And so likewise, whatever thought arises, it arises naturally and it subsides naturally into the mind. And one should not hold on to the truth or label whatever thought arises. Just let it be. And then it is like so being free of free of wanting. That is, as I mentioned before, even the subtle grasping at one's own tenet system, when you grasp at your own view, and then like a grasping thought has arisen, like a desire has arisen in the mind. And then you naturally think that your view is the correct view. For example, between Mahamudra and Dzogchen, which actually have the same essence. So for example, if you meditate, you practice Dzogchen, and you do see the nature of the mind, and even though you see the nature of the mind and you don't grasp, when you get out of the meditation again later, again you say, I practice Dzogchen, and that's way superior to Mahamudra. They're like nothing compared to Dzogchen. And so already dualistic grasping has arisen. And when there's grasping, you're not actually holding the view. Actually, the actual view cannot be given a name of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, or Madhyamaka. That's why Jigten Sumgön had said the actual view remains untouched by the three great ones, those three great views. It cannot be given a name. The nature of the mind cannot be given a name. And actually, because of that, it becomes quite simple, because it cannot be labeled anything. We don't need to think about it. We just rest in the space-like, clear and empty nature, and we don't call it anything. Because the moment we call it something, again, grasping thoughts will arise.
담책 집안에다가 무슨 고독 산속심 삼지 동답을 제리 정말 많이 봐 대래 대중하나 대통지 영송나 그리 담책 양은 거요래 밤에 와서 저런 거래 담책 집안에 대래 대 선마양 빨아 니지면아 네 pero como menos 고자자고 말이지 베세다 라면의 메다시 쇼사요 말이지 베세다에 그 말이 밖에 수말이 송장송지 돈에 다 담색소서 장내 송지 코송정아 송장 님의 없이다 거대니 다지니 메와 sem나 거다가 자한테 담색 조어들이 데레스 대다는 담색 송지요 말이죠 담색 들어가는 게 따와서 sem마는 거 대라서
And then observing vows conceptually, you betray the point of true samaya. And so that is, now here in this context, the true samaya, now first on the relative level, the samaya is bodhicitta, it is love. On the ultimate level, it is mindfulness. It is to be free from distraction. When you become distracted, then the samayas decline. You become unmindful. When you are not distracted and are not grasping at a duality, then it is just like when there is no thief, you don't need to lock your doors. Or when there is no enemy, you don't need any guns, any weapons. Milarepa also had said that when you have destroyed the duality of someone who holds samaya and a samaya to be held, when there is no more duality, then that is the ultimate samaya. There is actually, he said the ultimate samaya is the non-duality of a samaya to be held and someone who holds a samaya holder. And so that is when you have realized the non-duality of samsara and nirvana, self and other. The mind has become like space. And within that space-like nature, there is no duality of someone holding a samaya or a samaya to be held. And that is actually the ultimate samaya. The ultimate samaya is to transcend all duality. So that is it's not that there is no samaya, but that is the view is your own mind is the ultimate samaya.
Mane me tona madana ta thenya me bedru me so mane the cemetery ni di sham ni di me ni se me shi me dino ta ngo so ta to mo sa saje ko phawe me ko saje so rang ge saje ta chu so mo sa yin yo na mo pa me ba ke ta ne ta thenya me bedru me so ta se tra rang re so.
And then observing vows conceptually, you neither focus on an object nor abiding anywhere. If you do not stray from the actual truth, the unimpaired samaya is a light in the darkness. So when darkness is cleared away, that is, there is no more dualistic grasping in one's awareness. There's just a consciousness without grasping. And then not focused on an object, that is, when you have reached the ultimate goal of enlightenment, you have realized the state of enlightenment, then there is no other intentional object of focus at all. And that is the unimpaired samaya. The unimpaired samaya is a light in the darkness. So the unimpaired samaya, in other words, is the mind, or it is the view. And then if free of any wish, you do not dwell in extremes, you will see the meaning of all the Buddha's teachings without exception. So now on the ultimate level, if you remain in this state that is free of dualistic grasping within the view, the natural state of the mind, then that actually, that in itself is the essence of the three scripture collections, the Tripitaka of the Buddha's teachings. It is the ultimate truth. It is non-dual primordial wisdom. And that awareness itself is the root of the various teachings, the scripture collections.
다다다 마르바들랑 세군데로 통통은 님이와 통통들이 호박을 전혀 말아주고 연말에 마르바들들은 들이 마셔는 나도 무엇은 치마이 손에 들이래서 대들이 다른 걸 내서지 내가 사와서 쳤던 말이 득득 대담지 싸우는 여말을 집에나 니몽이 실려서나 다들 공총 대동대란 총고열에 담책념이 버트면서 졸랑 탐실했더니 시바사고 때 많이 봐야나 되니 니몽을 아주 봤다 하니 여말에 니몽이 싫어 저렇게
If you attend to this truth, you will be freed from the prison of samsara. So this truth here is that when you do not grasp at a duality, then you are freed from the prison of samsara. If you do grasp at a duality, then you are wandering in samsara. Within space, the space-like nature, there actually is no wandering and no one who wanders. And then if you rest in it evenly, the veils of negativity and ignorance will be burned away. Thus it is known as the torch of the teachings. So ignorance is cleared away when you realize the non-dual nature of your mind. And when you realize that, then those samsaric thoughts and ordinary afflictions can no longer arise. It is just if you believe in the true reality of the thoughts and afflictions that arise and whatever appears, that you will accumulate karma. And if you engage in action with body and speech, then it will fall back upon you. And that is this veil of negativity. So here, this veil of negativities and obscurations, the veils, is already gone. The afflictions have transformed into wisdom. And so that paragraph actually relates to the previous paragraph, the unimpaired samaya, which is a light in the darkness. And so when that light in the darkness, this unimpaired samaya, or this torch of the teachings, is then brought into the day-to-day conduct, you go about your daily conduct with clear awareness and non-distraction. And when that is always sustained, then ordinary afflictions will not arise, and what arises will be transformed into wisdom.
drip, you know, that Karina, Nidin, Nidin, Mevan, Ni, Germany, to take a drop from the literature, not all the new bottom shit, who was similar short over a pillar, showing Charon Chawana, child, or die jelly half, ni meva half was of Tana, in Charon Chat of your married. You tell me that the drip coming, that, but now never the Raji, the Lepiore, now never Ziri. Now never the part of Tampon Penasani Shesonga. Ni se mata, ni se Panaji Chakra Patore. Nga shit of some, nga left it out, Homa me but the Magator, Miles of Badella. The German now is about the Tevenity. Jimping lost it in Nazi, the Tomato, the Vesajikas of Arevene. The English dying email half was on the Capato, the Sajak of the Tars or Tribus of Thona, Nizime half was on the Rangram Taji, oh, dying email of song, Tartority, Territory, Numobatabi, Numobara, you got Jajameva, Solak to the Hako, Numobara, you got Jajameva. You know what less of your money. Then this also so.
So these negativities and obscurations, all of the negativities arise from obscuration. And the obscuration is dualistic grasping. It is the grasping at the existence of self and other when actually they do not exist separately. That is the obscuration. And being obscured by that, then when whatever thoughts and afflictions arise, you will become controlled by them because you're believing in their truth and your ideas about them. You're believing in it, and that makes your mind become like an ice block. So once you have finally understood the view, you realize non-duality. And once you have realized that, the mind cannot again become like an ice block. So the real obscuration is actually the self, this notion of I that naturally arises. And then later, after you have died and you come to the first bardo, it will be then like waking up from sleep, and instantly the I arises and you think something like, I have died. And once the I has come back, then all of the negativities and karmas accumulated since beginningless time come back together with that I. So the actual obscuration is this concept of an I. And that is why the Buddha had said, you need to cultivate an altruistic mind in order to eliminate this concept of a self. And so you can realize the non-duality of self and others. That is why it is said, by seeing Mahamudra, the negativities and obscurations accumulated in 1,000 aeons are cleared away in an instant. And it is something you can see through your own personal experience. You have to decide it or resolve it yourself. You have to, through practice, see yourself. Now I really do not grasp at a duality any longer. And when you do not grasp at a duality any longer, then just ordinary, unrestrained afflictions cannot arise anymore. So you can see it from your own experience. When you know that no ordinary or unrestrained afflictions arise, I will also not accumulate karma. So in this way, you begin to trust in yourself through your own practice.
And there is a dreamy third. This was Sanjay Chu, and then Howard Tap the Mina, Mapakarpa, or three, Mayna, the Rotava Chadi, Peretini, Dreamy, even Dreamies, Sanjay Barba, Dreamy, Nimata.
And thus it is known as the torch of the teachings. So the torch of the teachings, that is the ultimate truth, the Buddha. And now if we do not have the Buddha Dharma, the teachings, it is the Buddha's teachings on the ultimate level now. If we don't have those teachings, we do not have a method to become liberated from samsara. And then we will have to continue to wander in the darkness of samsara. And even as humans, we become most like animals. So the teachings are like a torch or like a sun.
Don't remember you. Don't remember you. Lubon, cover to the chivers. Don't remember you are late to dream much about. Late to dream the machina, to Tatapina, young Marago, give a devil, Jabalatin, don't do, Chatham in Millie, Zobar the doors and don't develop on Tori, you told your Tanga, Karina dogs, Mara, you don't chasing it, top songs and Maris. Much go, Chugo, Sammy, Teta, your Tetam to your machine, Tete. Casa sono se ya te nam jama me do te se sama te ya sama te ta le sa ta sa ke ma ni yu mo ko chu mo shi le sa do yo le sa so ya sama te ya de yu no ko ko ro ko ko re jum de ma chi ne te ta ko to pe ka me yu no ko nyong ko yo re jum de bi shi te ni ka chen bo yo re so jum de shi na o ka ri phen yo re o Masunam de Jabatsu Jobasan Somarit, Tarum Jabato, Son Gosan, Mango Tiasma, Jasa, Shirley, Jumderi, Yungtiri, Tata Dungi Tani, Chiriore, Mango David Jerduk Shiriore, Jumdema Shilemang Bibata, Terrasomaret.
Then foolish people who lack interest in this truth are forever carried off by the torrents of samsara, and their misery never ends. So that is when one doesn't understand karma. When you don't understand karma, then you don't understand that whatever happiness you experience in this life comes from the actions you committed in previous lives. For example, in previous lives, if you have practiced generosity, then now you're finding wealth. And if you have practiced morality, that is why you have a precious human body. And if you have practiced patience, you will have harmonious companions and a long life, a beautiful appearance, and so on. And so if you don't understand that, then you will think that everything I have, I earned that. I earned that through my own abilities, I studied hard, and I don't need anything, I don't need anyone, I don't need the Dharma, any religion. But then, when that merit comes to an end, it is just like the oil in a butter lamp becoming exhausted. Then what we do in the meantime is we continue to accumulate more and more karma all the time with our afflictions, with our negative emotions, not seeing their fault. And as a result of our merit coming to an end, and we continuing to accumulate negative karma in the future, we will have to wander again and again in samsara. So those who do not understand karma, therefore, will have to endure a lot of, it says, intolerable pains in the evil states. So they will run into a lot of difficulty in the future. If you understand karma, then what is the benefit of understanding karma? For example, if you have good things in your life, then you will know that this is, it comes from my merit, from the actions I have done, like generosity, morality, and patience. So if I want that again in the future, I must continue to practice that, like morality and patience and so on. And so you will know how to create the causes for that in the future. So if you understand karma, you will be able to accept the difficulties you experience now, and you will also know how to create the causes for happiness in the future. Otherwise, if you do not understand karma, it is like being blind.
사람 속에라 세트를 줘서 기비신이 뛴 거래요. 기비신이 있는 애들이 어디 보통 족발이네 제만하게 수발이 라마 hin기서 대바도 라마 특기에서 대바도 같이 와레스 로마 먹이서 대바도 같이 와레스 제가 최근에 토마니들 라마의 고독사 촉성 사바다 hin기에 로마 줄을 쇼네 이 동담사 촉을 로마라니 그 세비대식 뭐 통투고요래 돌라데 데레스 설합지 바 고독사 촉성 사바다 hin기에 줄라 라마 삼 hin기에 줄게 오래 나단리 라마를 꼴로코도고 제와치보리 인문이 꼴에들 송자치보리 송디시야 오면 송어들은 동무지 사치보 사족세우 사족세 자사발나 배기요마에 라마 센디까지 속도 토로고리 속다고 들었노 라마 센디다고 자고 라마 센까지다 소소 미스라지 랑이 보통 중마 보고 들어서 상지 오다 상지들이 상지들 참아는 상축sem래 남신 상지들이 일 상지들 때문에 남신 남은이 들들 남아 상축sem에서 와대서 사고들이 상축들 남아 상축셈 남은이 상축sem에 사바다 인지지 그런들이 유섬 사제 사제 셈디 남신 주발에다 이렇게 또 라면 셈사 죽셈 사마다 이지대 무징어에서
If you want release from these sorrows, rely on a wise guru, for when his blessings infuse you, your mind will be freed. So you need to rely on a teacher, a spiritual guide. And even though many guides may seem to be possessing various good qualities, Milarepa had said that the most important quality is that a guru must possess compassion and a disciple must possess devotion. That is very important. So when these two come together, then the guru will cause the relative bodhicitta of love and compassion to enter the mind of the disciple. And when that enters the mind of the disciple, then the disciple can realize Buddha nature, the nature of mind, which also is the guru's mind. So becoming infused with the guru's blessings means that the blessings really are love and compassion, the relative bodhicitta. That is what must arise or infuse the disciple. That is what must arise in the mind of the disciple. So the mind is most important. Often people are very attached to the physical form of the guru, but actually what's more important than the physical form is the words, the speech. And the speech can never die. And of the speech, of the words, what's most important is the meaning of those words. So even if we talk about bodhicitta 100 times, it is of no benefit. We need to understand the actual meaning. And that is found within the mind. So the mind is even more precious than the speech. So if we try to cling to the body of the guru, we will be mistaken. The body will perish. But what remains is the mind. So we must hold on to the mind. And what is the mind now of the guru? For example, anyone has someone that they love, like your husband, wife, your children, and so on. So it's just that love, that feeling of love. And if you have it for all beings, it is called bodhicitta. So if you have love and compassion for others, that is the mind of the guru. It is also said, I supplicate to the guru, that is bodhicitta. So the actual guru is really bodhicitta, immeasurable love and compassion. And that is why we say that the mind of all the Buddhas of the 3 times and the Guru's mind are the same. It is because what we need to identify as the Guru's mind that we need to infuse our own mind with is bodhicitta, love and compassion.
내가 가지고밖에 loksan 참 또 나로 주로 냐미 좋은 데서 거래 니냐미 다 차상지는 데요래 그 사자 처분 제가 그래요 베나디 사자 치고 습대식이 모두 습대 상태 주는 요바 그 라지 같은 내가 없으면 이제 소를 냈고요 데르지 빼 시송 못 했고요 내가 없어도 가래 접어 내가 념족은 내가 인석은 내가 됐으면서리 저솔 뭐요래 갑들이지 내가 침뭐 되들이 이제 대식도 뭐 그런 게 대화해 봐 마시는 코와밖에 내 핀지 이지나 저 대화를 되는 천도요래 갑들이 저때를 빼지 이래지 대화처럼 생각 내려고 대화 롱말 롱말 저 대화에서 하고 딱 그랬더니 지나 맞대인가 대화 좀 저거요 제가 살롱이냐면 제가 탑다 실업선을 집어들 당한 거고요. 저는 사하가 따와나 탑지사에 수준이가 살아야지 조광아의 영아 녀몽아의 신의 사원사를 차대요. 그래서는 포상지 지내도 못하지 이제 좀 마시 된 콜로데 전년에 포상지 콜로데 좀 못하지 또지 파모 무슨 차대요. 마음이 배매도 강원도에 차대 뒤다나지요래 들이 배수민이가들이 소속내 다난 거네 대체시나 사족스고 이제세 다난 나타네 근데 냐메지나 들이 소소를 저러요래 세체 소소를 저러요래 들사냐미 대송거리에 들다와 진짜 돈랑 왔다 내서 잡다 를 잡아서 나한테 살롱 그냥이 대송거리에.
And then when you rely on a consort, the wisdom of empty bliss will arise. So enter into union the blessing of method and wisdom. Bring it down slowly, retain it, reverse it, and draw it back up. Bring it to the places in the body and let it spread throughout. This relying on a consort or a karma mudra is a method to take the affliction as the path without abandoning the affliction. In the Kagyu tradition, we practice this in the context of a 3-year retreat, when we practice the 6 yogas of Naropa, the practice of Tummo. So this verse here actually is the essence of the Tummo practice. So actually all of the instructions of Tummo really are included within that verse. And so how is that now related to Mahamudra? It is not because in Mahamudra we say every sentient being, all beings possess Buddha nature. It is their true nature. And we have mentioned before, there are 3 times when everybody actually comes to the basic natural state of the mind. And we are introduced to that through the illustrative wisdom. So that is, those 3 times is first when the first time is when we die and the consciousness transfers. Then a second time is when we engage in sexual union. And the third one is in a deep sleep state. And so what happens in those 3 times is that we come to the actual natural state of the mind, and that is why there is a great experience of great bliss. And when samsaric beings come to that place, they don't recognize that the bliss that they experience is actually inherent to their own nature. It is their own Buddha nature that they are experiencing. So they don't recognize that, and they believe that the bliss is dependent on some outside other factor, on another person. And then they become attached to that other person because they think that that's where the bliss comes from. And not recognizing the bliss, they again become confused. But actually, the bliss that we experience is innate to the nature of our own mind. And it is experienced when the winds dissolve into the central channel. And when you realize that, then you have no more need to rely on others or something external to experience bliss. It is your own true nature. So this verse deals with the channels, winds, and drops practices. And then it says here the wisdom of empty bliss will arise, and then the blessings of method and wisdom. So that is the most important foundation of the Vajrayana view or the practice is a pure perception. And that is to view all beings, actually the entire universe and all beings as the deity. The 5 elements are the 5 female Buddhas, and the 5 afflictions are the seeds of the 5 wisdoms. And all males are Chinrisic and all females are Tara. Or all males are Chakra Samvara and all females are Vajrayogini. And that is their true nature. Their mind is just like an unopened, an unripe flower, like a flower bud. And so if you now practice a pure perception, actually now speaking about the union of 2 partners, if on the basis there is bodhicitta and a pure perception for each other, then such a union actually becomes an accumulation of merit. Then anything you do becomes an accumulation of merit. And that is also how we explain it in terms of deity yoga, when we practice the deity. So this verse here, it refers to the practices of channels, winds, and drops. And then it says, when you remain free of desire, the wisdom of empty bliss will appear. And so now this refers to the previous practice here. In order to engage in such practice, it is first necessary that you find an experienced and qualified teacher of such a practice. Because without a qualified teacher, and just relying on some books and so on, it can lead to a lot of faults, a lot of problems actually. So it is first necessary to find a qualified, experienced teacher. And now then, having found such a teacher, first on a basis you have already trained in a pure perception and non-attachment, no desire for what arises. So at that time, when engaging in this practice, great bliss arises. And there you recognize that this bliss is the actual natural state of your own mind. Therefore, desire will not arise because it is your true mind. So you, through the experience of such bliss, therefore, you realize the nature of Mahamudra. And so it is important, however, to keep in mind that we need to rely on somebody who is really qualified, because if we only rely on some words and then do all kinds of things on our own, it could cause to a lot of trouble, like we can get sick and so on. So we have to be very careful with that.
수고용 딱해요. 체라야 배고요래. 또 세계라 시바들이 나도 다니면 못 지나 되는 막 봐. 들이 되는 문제는 들이다. 깨처럼 양아가 작고요. 우리 그들이 유모 봐라. 못 봐. 그렇게 되는 나도 좋다 봐. 동의선이 뭐는 못 봤지. 고고에 들이 도망 좀 여터 초리요서. 도망 좀 들이 챈데 내가 토리게 되라. 좀 해봐. 그 초고 사자체 뭐 즉기나 그냥 남상통 하고요. 초를 줘서 사자체 뭐 타니고 차대해서 사자체 뭐 내지민한테 로아까지 형한테 벌써 소디 공행지체 보고서 뭐한답 잡아리 진짜 석은 냠이시네 들어봐 니가 냠대우 사람들이 대공들이 공 sabjeta teyo samsel chabli jogre malare pe naksana ki achimore.
Then it says, like the waxing moon, your life will expand without growing hair. You will have a shining presence and be as strong as a lion. So also, as a result of this practice, then your life your life will expand. Your body will become strong. And now here, to be as strong as a lion is that you attain a state of fearlessness, and that is based on your ability to liberate the arising thoughts. So when you're able to do that, then you're not afraid of afflictions and you're not afraid of suffering. As you mentioned before, now you are able to liberate the thoughts. And then the common attainments will be swiftly gained and you will enter into the ultimate attainment. The common attainments or the common siddhis then are on a temporarily. As a result, you will take birth in the higher realms and experience happiness there. And the ultimate attainment, the ultimate siddhi, is that of Mahamudra. And you will enter into it also means that to some even might see it instantly. Maybe there are some who, by just practicing this, will instantly see Mahamudra. But in any case, you enter also as in you come very close to Mahamudra, to the attainment of Mahamudra. And then may this essential advice on Mahamudra dwell in the hearts of fortunate beings. So this is the compassionate prayer made by Tilopa. And he said in the end that whoever practices this, I, Tilopa, will be together with them. As you mentioned before, like also in Milarepa's story, because his essence pervades the entire animate and inanimate universe. So therefore these teachings are very precious.
Om mani padme hum, Om mani padme hum, Om mani padme hum, Om mani padme hum, Om mani padme 이발 속으래 만에 배 홍. 야.
Oh, Mane, please come back 2 o'clock. So starting 2 o'clock afternoon section, just Rinpoche read the some prayer. So this is a transmission, and the 3 Yadam deities in there. So you can practice. That is a protector. So the Aneshi request for Rinpoche. And then we have a Kada offering this afternoon. So maybe afternoon is only 1 section, a little bit longer section. Any you have to prepare for that, So please, and maybe could be 1 section, okay? Not 100% sure. just afternoon, maybe only one section, maybe 2 to 4, longer section. Could be, okay? So yogis always change, we don't know. Thank you.
Hold on for just another minute, so we got a couple of announcements. So, speaking for myself, and I'm sure many people here of the yogi, and maybe many of yours, there are great holy heroes. The yogi heroes are, and this is the lineage, the Drikung Kagyu lineage of the yogis, masters and so on. So, Garchen Rinpoche is certainly manifesting a tradition. Kempo said that we'd like to have one kata offering, maybe 4 o'clock or so. If you have to leave early, there's a microphone. It's not working. Okay, this is better. You have to make a kata offering when Rinpoche comes in from lunchtime. Would be the best time to do it at 2 o'clock. But if you can stay until 4 and everybody can do it together, that would be the best thing for Rinpoche. We have the Guru Rinpoche statue that is on the desk outside. We're looking for a sponsor for that, $2,000. It's a beautiful statue. It has sat up here for 2 years and brought many great blessings to Dharma Surya Center. As you know, Guru Rinpoche, his great genius was to be able to go from India into Tibet. And there he was able to morph what was the indigenous shamanistic traditions that was there in Tibet with the Indian tradition. So in many ways, that's what we've been doing here in the West now, that the Eastern traditions have come to the West, and we're seeing ways in which we can morph these together for now and for the future. So Guru Rinpoche represents that ability to be able to do that. So if you can sponsor that, Father of the Tibetan Buddhism would be absolutely wonderful. So please take a look at that and consider that. Regarding some Buddhas that are here, remember you can make monthly donations to accumulate the $1,000 if you like. $50, $20, $100, whatever you do, you can pick the Buddha that you would like to use, that you would like to have your name affixed to and the location for it. So I think there's 4 different Buddhas up here, so you can do that. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you. And the last note that I have is about Gardroma, and please check their website for notices as to what's going to be available when Garchen Rinpoche is there. So that's the message I got for that. So thank you all very much. Enjoy lunch, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock today. Thank you.
That you asked.